Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Sports Court. I'm Gregory Beatty, alongside Eddie Cox on this wonderful, wonderful Tuesday evening. Eddie, what is up, my brother?
What is up, Greg? I know you're happy to be back in here. We weren't in here last week. A lot went down, so we got 2 weeks of stuff. We're going to touch on some of the things that we missed not coming in last week, but we are going to roll into the action of what's going on this week and what's happened, because there's a lot that I know you want to talk about.
Yes.
Going on with sports, going on with
Yes.
football, baseball, especially in this city, and we're going to talk a little bit about the slap heard around the world, aren't we, Greg?
Ooh.
Everybody heard it. It woke people up
Hey, you know
to get
what?
on Twitter and talk about
It
that.
really did. So we'll definitely touch on that, man. I'm glad you brought that up. The infamous slap at the Oscars. Chris Rock taking a slap from Will Smith. Hey, let's just call it what it is. He was bitch slapped. He was bitch slapped. But hey, you know what? We don't get bitch slapped in here. We're the Sports Court, the show that keeps it 100% of the time. Glad to be here. Like Eddie was just saying, it's a lot to talk about. Of course, the Final Four is coming up this weekend. Of course, the NBA is getting closer and closer to the playoffs. Eddie, the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James. LeBron James, the second greatest player of all time, second or third, if you want to throw Kareem in there as well.
Man, we are going to start getting some hate if we keep anointing him as the second greatest of all time.
Well,
Look, I just want
I
to
don't
say
know
real
why.
quick, I mean, well, just because we got some old schoolers that love to watch what we do, and I know there's a lot of talk about Larry Bird, I've heard, needs to get some run. I've heard Magic Johnson to get some run, Dr. J. I've heard a lot of stuff,
this?
a lot of
Well, you
different
know what?
opinions from people. I know a lot of
got
people
you.
of my generation automatically assume it's LeBron.
Well, you know what, too? And objectively speaking, all those guys you named, I love a lot as players.
I
and
really
great
like Larry.
in their
There's
own
so
right.
many good
Larry
stories.
Bird was
He's
a
a
bad
legend.
man. He was a bad man. He was a bad man for the Celtics. And I was a Magic Johnson fan, so I wasn't crazy about the Celtics at the time. As a matter of fact, I remember Larry Bird against Magic Johnson in the 1979 championship game, Michigan State against Indiana State. That's really, Eddie, the first national championship basketball game that I can vividly remember. Now, I don't vividly remember it like play for play, but I do remember the game. I do remember at the end of the game, Skrilla, grade A radio, grade A media, Skrilla Montana in the house, what's up? But I do remember at the end of the game when Magic Johnson was celebrating, but that was a great game. I remember the hype from that game, Billy Packer, and hey, that was a great. Larry Bird, Celtics, the Celtics, 3 championships, great career. Dr. J, of course, I was a Philadelphia 76ers fan as well as the Los Angeles Lakers and Magic Johnson. I like the 76ers as well. And Dr. J, what can I say about Dr. J? But I say LeBron because if you look at the totality, now here's a guy who's on the path to be the all-time leading scorer, to surpass Kareem Abdul-Jabbar if he stays healthy and plays again next season, which I'm sure he will, and continues to accumulate the numbers that he's been accumulating. The guy might win the scoring title this season. And I think at this point, his overall play and the things he has done on both sides of the ball, but just the totality of it and where he's going to be at the end of his career, in my opinion, I would have to put him at number 2, maybe number 3 behind Kareem, but right there at 2 or 3. We all know Kobe's my favorite player ever. But I'll say this, Eddie, the reason I brought up LeBron James in the intro is because, of course, we're going to talk some NBA toward the end of this. And, of course, the Lakers do not look like they're going to be in there. And, Eddie, LeBron James, if you remember last year, he was actually one of the guys that said about the play-in tournament. Now he's probably wishing that he hadn't said that, or now he's probably going to need the play-in tournament if they can hold off, appreciate you, Skrilla, if they can hold off the San Antonio Spurs and they can finish in the 10th seed, even though they're still not going to win anything if they make it to the first round, because we all know the Phoenix Suns are lurking right there with Chris Paul back in the fold. But didn't LeBron James say last year about the play-in tournament, whoever came up, his exact words, whoever came up with this shit needs to be fired? now he's probably going to need the play-in tournament.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Greg, I don't know what to make of this. I know that, his legacy really isn't riding on what happens from here on out. He's won enough. He's done enough. I mean, as physically gifted as he is coming in the league straight out of high school, I mean, he's done enough to be, that dude. His legacy is cemented. But I know there's a lot of people that I've talked to, friends of mine, people that just have the opinion that this is the beginning of the end for LeBron. Like, we already know he's no longer the guy that carries a team to at least the conference finals every season, regardless of what the roster is. He's not that anymore. But now we're starting to see that even with pieces in place, when you go all out and swing for the fences and build this, supposed to be super team around LeBron, that maybe if every break doesn't go your way, then you're still not even going to make it. And now if you're not even going to make the playoffs, no, where do you go from there? And I don't know. When does LeBron decide that, maybe he wants to just finish your career early? I mean, we don't know a lot about what kind of health issues he goes through because he's already played through so much. He's been an Iron Man in this league. But think about it, Greg. What if, playing just a few more years, all of a sudden things do start to break down in the lower body? He does have problems with his feet. What if walking away sooner rather than later is actually better for LeBron's legacy than him sticking around and having more seasons like this one?
Well, I guess we are talking some NBA right now.
I mean,
we're going to talk more NBA.
It just came out of nowhere, but I mean.
Well, I'll say this about LeBron. To your point, to your question, I think LeBron James has a mentality like Tom Brady. And I think LeBron James sees the level that he's playing at this point in his career. Again, he's still playing at a very, very high level individually. Of course, the team success hasn't been what he's expected this season. Of course, they've had some injuries with Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. That trade hasn't panned out. But he's doing his part when he's on the court, again, averaging major numbers, still explosive. I think to the point I made about him making that comment last year about whoever came up with this shit, meaning the playoff tournament, the play-in tournament, the play-in games or whatever, needs to be fired. I think at this point, we know LeBron is a realist as well, and I think LeBron at this point as far as this season, and granted, this is mere speculation on my part, but I would think that LeBron is probably like, okay, this season is a wash as far as us making it to the playoffs and us having a chance for me to gain that 5th championship or whatever. So I don't really care about the play-in tournament to that degree because we're going to get swept anyway if we get into the first round. Maybe LeBron doesn't feel like that. Maybe he has some kind of thought, well, I am LeBron James. If AD is healthy and maybe Russell Westbrook can hit his stride, maybe so. So who knows what he's really thinking? I know that he knows that he's close to that scoring title and he's going to keep accumulating those numbers. But I think he has the mentality like, okay, he knows he takes care of his body like none other. He sees the success that Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and some of these, and we're going to talk about, of course, we're going to talk a lot of NFL and a lot of those moves as well. Tyreek Hill, Deshaun Watson, Devontae Adams. But I think LeBron sees himself, and I think he looks at it like, hey, I still take care of my body. I'm still explosive. I'm still playing at a very high level. He's made the comment that he wants to play with his son, and I don't know how good his son, Bronny James, is really if he can even make it to the NBA. He's shown some talent, but I don't know. We shall see. Maybe he will make it to the NBA. He's talented, don't get me wrong. But I think LeBron is probably going to play until his wheels fall off. To your point, maybe it is something to thinking about. He has done everything that he possibly could do other than scoring title and maybe the assist title and maybe so he's going to play at least another 3 years, I think, at a very high level, at least until he's 40 years old. Now, the team success, I don't know. We shall see what happens with the Lakers moving forward. But, hey, and we'll talk some more NBA as the show wanes on, of course. But, Eddie, I have to get your take, man. The last time we were in here, again, you listen to the Sports Court. I'm Greg. That's Eddie to my left right there. Grade A Radio. Carlos Correa. The last time we were in here, of course, we're both big-time baseball fans, looking forward to baseball season. That is near and dear to our hearts, and we can't wait to April the 7th. And they are going to play the full 162. The Astros are actually going to open up against the Angels, the aforementioned Angels, who we talked about at length a couple of shows ago about Mike Trout and the team that they have with Shohei Ohtani and Justin Upton, and it's finally time for them to get into the playoffs so Mike Trout can do his thing in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens with that. So that's who the Astros open up with. But we do know, Eddie Cox, that the Astros will be opening up without their leader, Carlos Correa, who's moved on to the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, it was a strange deal the way everything played out. You remember the last time that we talked about this, there was rumors swirling around that Carlos Correa was going to stick around with the Astros, and the Astros were going to be good with giving him a contract that had a player option after 1, 2, or 3 years.
Really?
The rumors were that the Astros were going to be okay with that.
Okay.
You're seeing Carlos Correa
that's
out
the
with
kicker
Alex
right there.
Bregman. He's out with Jose Altuve. They seem to be doing things as a team, so we thought, the way things, had been for so long, but maybe, or as we saw, it ended up just being sort of a farewell kind of deal
Right.
that shocked a lot of people. It shocked me. It
Shocked me as well.
Jose Altuve, but in the end, as all the details start to come out, it was just about money. The Astros weren't willing to put up that kind of money with a player option. They didn't want to go through the do you want to stay, do you want to go with Correa every single year. And the Minnesota Twins were willing to make him the highest paid player in baseball, even if it's just for a brief period of time, and give him the option to hit the market once again next year. To your credit, Greg, for bringing up this up last time we talked about this, to your credit, they do want to test the market in a season where there's not a negotiation or a lockout or anything like that. They want to be able to have the entirety of free agency and to have the actual feeding frenzy take place for a player like Carlos Correa, similar to what we saw for who's your boy with the Phillies? I'm drawing a blank right now. We saw get Bryce Harper get the big contract. When his time came up. I know that's what Correa wants to do, and he wants to have the option to go back to the table and play his hand if things work out next season. Let's say he doesn't suffer a major injury.
Right.
But the Astros weren't willing to play ball there, and I think a lot of people, myself included, are surprised by that. But also you get the sense that they are ready to move on to what they have coming up through the pipe in one Jeremy Pena.
Yeah.
And, if not now, then when, and we're disappointed, we being the fans. I know you probably are too, Greg, disappointed that run with Carlos Correa is over. He cemented himself in our hearts whenever, he had the post about, shut the hell up. I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah, I got you.
But I mean, really, he took a stand and he solidified a team that could have crumbled in a very tumultuous situation. And you got to give him all the credit in the world. He is an ultimate team leader. Yeah. And let's see what that does for Minnesota. But in the end, this was all about money. Carlos Correa wanted to be recognized and paid like the best player in the league. That's what he got. And he wants to have a chance to get a bite at it again next season. He got that too. And the Twins are like, hey, we're going to throw some stuff up against the wall and see if it sticks.
Right.
We are in this thing. That's how they feel about it. And good for them for being able to land that sort of a big fish.
That's it, man. And you know what? That's exactly what it's about. It's about the money. All the time it's about the money. Of course, we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson as well coming up here soon. So we know that was about the money as well, among other things, among the Cleveland Browns being a team that he could probably win with right now. But, of course, it's always about the money at the end of the day. And we're talking about Carlos Correa. Check this out, Eddie. Okay, 3 years, $105.3 million. That's over $35 million a year. So he's the highest paid player in the league, like you're saying. Again, 279 last year, 279, 26 home runs, 92 RBIs, won his first Gold Glove. And it is going to be a tremendous loss for the Astros. The heart of their team as far as leadership is concerned. Now, they have some other veteran players on there that's good leaders, Altuve and those guys. But like we've talked about, Correa is the guy that stood up for the team. He would say things in the media. He would have his teammates back. And he was that voice for the Astros to go along with this play. Again, if he can stay healthy, that's a tremendous catch for the Minnesota Twins. Now, we're talking about a team in the Minnesota Twins, Eddie, a team that since 1961, they've played in 16 playoff series. Carlos Correa, in his, 6 seasons with the Astros, going on 7 years? His 6 seasons, what did he play in? 19 series with the Astros? So he's definitely taken that experience over there to the Twins. Now, we know the Twins have some talent in Byron Buxton and some other players, and they actually fell off some last year, where we thought last year the Twins were actually going to take that leap as they were showing the year prior. And last year they fell off, finished in last place, had some injuries. Byron Buxton got hurt, who's playing like an all-star, one of the best players in the league. He got injured. He's back this season. I think he'll be healthy. So you have a team that has the potential. Now you plug Carlos Correa in there, and so we'll really see what the Twins can do. But he does have that opt-out after his first season, and that's big for him because he's only 27, 28 years old. So if he has that big-time season, like we're saying, that's possible for him to be able to go out and get that long-term contract that he actually covets. I mean, that will bode well for him, but he has to stay healthy. So he's basically betting on himself, of course, that he's going to stay healthy, put up the monster numbers. Even if he doesn't, he's still under contract for a couple of more years after that to get healthy. So he's playing with house money right now. He can go in, he can put up some big numbers in Minnesota, great city, have a chance to win, a team that's on the up and up, a fresh new start for him. So I'm sure he's feeling good. The Twins uniform look pretty smooth. So he go in there at that shortstop and he does what he has to do and has some big numbers at the plate. And then next thing you know, he'll have a big number on his contract next year as well, and it'll be a long-term contract. So he's betting on himself. Again, he'll only be like 28 years old. Again, injury-plagued career, but hey. And then if you look at Dusty Baker, Eddie, Dusty Baker said—
real quick. Go ahead with your Dusty comment.
I
got a question
I definitely
for
want you to chime in some more. If you look at Dusty Baker said, and which he has to say, because he has to get the pulse of his team and he has to get the mindset of his team going in the right direction. Yeah, that was a big loss, but now everyone else is just going to have to step their game up even more to help make up for their loss. Now Jeremy Pena, he's going to have to hit the ground running and really solidify that shortstop position and give them something at the plate. Now you have Kyle Tucker, who's another year into the fold, who showed that he's on the up and up, and he's a guy that's definitely a guy that's on the come up as far as being one of these young talents. He can raise his game to another level. You have Alvarez. So you still have Brantley, Altuve. You still have all these players in place. You have Verlander coming back as a pitcher. But like Dusty Baker said, hey, that's the sport. That's how it goes in all sports. He harkened back to when he was playing baseball. He harkened back to a time when he played with Hank Aaron, the great Hank Aaron, one of the best players to ever do it, the true home run king, even though Barry Bonds was probably the best player ever, in my opinion, but that's a story for another day. But when Hank Aaron left and went to the Milwaukee Brewers after they were teammates, then after him and the Dodgers had that success when they won the not 77 because the Yankees beat them in 77, Reggie with them 3 home runs. Oh, man, with those 3 home runs. 78, I think the Yankees won again. The Dodgers won, or did the Dodgers? But the Dodgers won the World Series with Dusty Baker and Steve Garvey, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But Steve Garvey had to leave. He went to the Padres. So a lot of these teams, they always lose these big-time players. But what teams have to do, they have to adjust. And that's obviously what the Astros have to do.
Now, what I wanted to ask you, Greg, was
Okay.
Let's say Jeremy Pena falls flat on his face this season and it looks like he's not going to be able to fill the shoes left behind from Carlos Correa.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Correa plays lights out next year, maybe has a little bit of some injury issues, nothing major, but enough to keep his market from going all the way through the roof.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Any chance the Astros kick the tires on maybe bringing Carlos Correa back after one season, or do you think now that he's moved on, it is a permanent divorce between these two entities, one Astros,
That's a great
other
question.
Carlos Correa?
That's a great question, and that's a very interesting question. And to your point that you made, it all hinges on the fact, what does Jeremy Pena do at that shortstop position? Now, he doesn't have to have a monster year, but if he shows that he's the shortstop for the future and they can definitely invest in him and look forward to him, and he shows some promise, gets better as the year goes on, takes the tutelage from Dusty Baker and the other players that's been around to show him the way. If he does that and that talent truly shines, then I don't think the Astros go after Carlos Correa. But if Carlos Correa, to your point, if he doesn't have that monster year, I think it all hinges on, to answer your question, I think it all hinges on what Jeremy Pena does. But if Carlos Correa is available once again and he did not have just an injury that's just going to beset him, like something to his arms or wrist or hands or something like that, like I'm starting to concern myself with your boy in San Diego, Fernando Tatis Jr. He's having all these injuries to his shoulder, to his wrist now. I mean, you don't want to start having, as a hitter, you don't want to start having all these injuries to your hands and your shoulders and your wrists and things of that sort. But if Carlos Correa has a good year and he shows that he's healthy, I think the Astros would take a chance on bringing him back. Now, depending on what kind of money he's going to be asking for as well, because you have to remember, he is locked in at $35 million a year. If he doesn't feel that he can garner more than that or really enhance his contract and get those big numbers even bigger than they are now, I don't think he leaves Minnesota. So That's
think
going to be
he's
interesting.
definitely leaving Minnesota.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely going to opt out after 1 year. Everything goes well. You know, I think even
What if
if
Minnesota
it doesn't
has
go
a very
great,
good year?
I think either way. I mean, look at the Astros. They went all the way to the World Series. It didn't stop him from, you know, it didn't mean he said, hey, I got to come back to win. I don't think winning is what is ultimately most important to Carlos Correa. He wants to be paid like, you know, the player that he feels that he is, and really the player that he has been at moments. You know, here in Houston, we know
When he's healthy.
He's been vital.
Yeah.
You know, but just at this point in his career, that's a lot of money to give to somebody and hope that they remain that type of player for for the length of that contract. You're almost guaranteeing that it. I mean, you can almost be guaranteed that it doesn't happen.
Okay, but well, here's my question to you.
That
now,
you hope that you get the best out of him so much out of him in those first few years that it doesn't matter that you're sending him checks whenever he's not playing anymore. He's fell so far off a cliff that you might as well put him on the bench.
Okay, but to your question, if he has a good year but not a great year, and he just doesn't just wreck shop in Minnesota, will he want to come back to Houston? I think he would entertain that. But again,
I think they'd be on the table. But to me, it's about the money. If
it's
Houston's ready
about
to
the money.
pony
So why?
up,
So here's my question to you, Eddie: why would he want to leave a contract that he's already inked in at over $35 million a year, the highest paid annual salary in the game right now?
Right.
Even if he doesn't have an astronomical year, why would he want to leave that to go test the market again if he doesn't feel like he's going to covet more than he's getting right now?
I think getting a longer-term deal is what he's going to be after. Getting more guaranteed years, more guaranteed.
Well, if the
money.
Astros offer that, I see what you're saying.
And for the Astros, you say, well, why would they go? Why would they go back to the plate and take a swing at Carlos Correa when they really didn't even make him another offer? Down the stretch that was anywhere close to what Minnesota was offering. And I say this: you get a look at Jeremy Pena right now. He's something that has potential, and you don't know what it could be. You're excited to see what it could be. It could be good, could be bad, could be somewhere in the middle, but you don't know. If you get a glimpse behind that curtain and you see hideousness and ugliness and failure, then all of a sudden you start thinking about the days whenever you were playing for a World Series and making it to 5 consecutive, ALCSs, and then you start saying, hey, maybe we do go into the luxury tax. Maybe we do spend extra money. Maybe we do take a chance on overpaying Carlos Correa later on in his career to get these good years out of him right now, because we've seen, we know what he is to us. We don't know what the hell he is to Minnesota, but he is the catalyst, and the straw that stirs the drink to the Houston Astros. So we'll spend that money then. But still, I think it's an extreme long shot.
Right.
The rumors that I've heard is that he's going to be a Yankee. If that's the case, then I'll tell you this: that that it is money that is what's most important. And
you think?
I don't know how you go from being an Astro to being a Yankee after all the vitriol and all the stuff that's come from New York, from those teams, or the Dodgers even. I understand the money. I get it, but then to me, there's some things that run a little deeper. As they say, blood's thicker than water.
Right.
And I thought that these guys bonded over blood, if you know what I mean. Them being the Houston Astros going through what they went through together. And
even Altuve, well, that goes to show you, if a better opportunity presents itself for anyone that's going to be best for them and their family, I mean, they're going to take that, especially when it comes down to the money. Now, as far as, and I'm sure that he's still going to be in contact with those guys. I'm sure he's talked to those guys and everything is cool. Of course, they would love to have him as a teammate. I'm sure he can't smooth that over. They would love to have him as a teammate. But I think in respect, I think those guys understand that he made a business decision. And if his path leads back to Houston, so be it. Now, as far as how it pertains to the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers, I mean, if that happens, of course it's about the money, but it's also about the tradition as well and the opportunity to win. I mean, if you look at the Los Angeles Dodgers this year, I mean, of course they added Freddie Freeman and they lost Sager, but they're looking like, again, win. I mean, if you look at the Los Angeles Dodgers this year, I mean, they are that loaded, the Dodgers. So you have a team with tradition. Of course, you're in L.A., so whatever money you're making on your contract, you're going to be able to make that up just by playing with the Dodgers, a big market. And, of course, the same thing with the Yankees. I'm talking about a team with a rich tradition, a tradition like no other as far as World Series, going all the way back to Babe Ruth. I mean, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio. I can go on and on and on. I mean, if you have a chance to go play for the New York Yankees and they're going to pay you, and you have a chance to play with a healthy Aaron Judge. We'll see what he does this year. He's looking good so far. Giancarlo Stanton. I can't fault him for that either. Of course, I would love to see him right back here in Houston. But we're going to see what happens with the Twins because, again, before we get off the baseball, right, well, of course, I want to talk a little bit more baseball in a second, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. But, again, the Minnesota Twins last season was kind of aberration for them if you go by what they looked like the season prior. So the Minnesota Twins may surprise some people and be good,
you know how I feel?
and they might show enough promise to where he may want to stay with them.
You know how I feel right now? Mm-hmm. You ever seen Barbershop? Mm-hmm. You know the role that Cedric the Entertainer plays?
Of course.
You remember what he says about Jesse Jackson?
Nah, but I can't
well, I say about the Twins. Man, F the Minnesota Twins, man.
Yeah,
I'm
I
feeling
couldn't
like,
wait to get
look,
your opinion.
I'm feeling like Lance McCullers. Bury me in the H. Did you see when he come out and said, hey, I'm in Houston for life. As long as they'll have me, you can bury me in the H. And Astros fans went ballistic.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of dedication that, fans eat up, man, that you just don't get anymore. I mean, Greg, you watched sports at a time way back in the day, no offense, way back in the day, but hey, at a time where players, before free agency, players were on teams their entire careers. So there was a lot of loyalty built between players and fans. And, the further we get on down the road, in sports, it seems like the further we get away from that and different things drive players and motivate players to go play different places. And it's not always winning. It's not always, commitment. It's not always, they brought me in the league. They drafted me. I'm going to finish my career here. You rarely get that anymore.
Right.
And sometimes I wonder why, but the reason is because this become a very, very lucrative business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we just got to respect that kind of power unleashed. You got to let it run its course.
Absolutely.
And we've seen that sometimes it's going to show things are going to happen that are going to blow your mind. We're going to talk about one later, the Deshaun Watson contract of all things. That has, opened a whole new can of worms, not just for the Cleveland Browns, but, for the entire NFL. Now everybody who has a contract is wondering, what the hell am I going to do? If I kick the can down the road now, how much is it going to be next year? I mean, if it's 200, if the market's set at 230 million right now,
right.
I can't wait. I got to sign my quarterback, and now the biggest one is Steve Bisciotti came out and talked about how difficult it's going to make negotiations between him and Lamar Jackson, who you could argue could get paid more than Deshaun Watson.
I know, and a guy that's won an MVP. He has an MVP to his credit. But before we get into the NFL, Eddie, some great points. And the thing about it is, hopefully the Astros can still stay afloat. I think they still can be a great team. If Pena can get in there and he doesn't have to have the weight of the world on his shoulders, he can learn from these other guys, like I said.
Right.
And he can get in there and show some flashes and get better as the year goes on. The Astros will be right back there at the top of their division. And we shall see, but I'm looking forward to it, and I know you are too.
I love
as well.
that from McCullers, man, and that's the kind of attitude that here in Houston, we've had Deshaun Watson turn his back on us. We've had James Harden turn his back on us.
Yeah.
Carlos Correa, I wouldn't say he turned his back, but he walked away.
He did. In the middle of the night, he made his deal. He signed his deal like overnight. Like everybody woke up like,
thief in the night. But hey, man, but to hear Lance, have that, and I hope that mentality is infectious throughout that locker room between Bregman and Altuve. And Jordan and Kyle Tucker, let's face it, they still have a unit.
Yes.
They still have a great core of guys, young guys who are still hungry for another championship.
Absolutely. And Eddie, and of course they have the experience, and maybe his departure may bring them even closer, and maybe they may feel slighted, and that just may help them raise their game even more and really get the job done, even though they wish him well in Minnesota, but of course not as well as they wish for themselves. So, hey, let's see what happens. And, of course,
hey, you're going to get some interesting, coming back home matchups when you have Cleveland, taking on the Texans this year. And then whenever you have the Twins, when they come back to Houston, or even when we get to watch them on TV, when we see the Astros playing Carlos Correa, those are going to be two really weird games, watching Carlos Correa play in another uniform and then seeing Deshaun Watson running around on the field at NRG. That is going to be
we're going to talk about that.
Insane.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It really is. And I want to get your
Browns
thoughts.
uniform. Not
right, because we still have to
nuts.
see who the Texans are going to draft, and we have to see what's going to go on with that. We can talk, and of course, we're going to talk some NFL here soon, and we're going to see who the Cowboys are going to draft, and because they didn't do anything in the free agency
baseball
world.
just heating up. People are starting to get
baseball is heating up right now.
Fever pitch.
And
Justin Verlander
especially
went out
me and
there,
you.
had a good outing today.
There it is. There it is. And what I was saying about the Phillies a couple of weeks ago about, of course, Bryce Harper's my favorite player, and I would love to see the Phillies. I don't see how you cannot root for a team. Of course, I want Dusty to get his first ring, but I've never been the guy that can have a favorite player and not actually root for the team to do well. I just don't see how that's possible. Now, Luka is my favorite player in the NBA, but I don't necessarily root for the Mavericks, even though I want to see Luka do well. But, of course, I'm H-Town all the way. I have now the Cowboys on my team. That's too much Dallas right there. But, of course, when I watch them play, I want to see them do well. So,
Dallas.
hopefully that's too much Dallas.
Too
Hopefully
much
that's
Dallas.
in the win. But Philadelphia, think about their lineup. JT, Real Muto, Juan Segura, Bryce Harper, Reese Hoskins, Odubel Herrera, Didi Gregorius. I mean, then they have a shortstop, a prospect, Bryson Scott at shortstop, 22 years old. And would they please let Mickey Moniak, I mean, I thought he came up last year, the former first pick in the draft about 4 years ago. He's been in the minors, getting some seasoning, getting his body right, putting on some weight. But he was the number one pick in the draft. They pulled him up last year to the big leagues, and he showed some flashes. Then next thing you know, they sent him right back down. Now, would you let this guy play, Mickey Moniak? Because I thought he showed some flashes last season. So it's time to turn Mickey Moniak loose. I think he can give the Phillies something. And, of course, you have pitching is the concern for the Phillies, but you see the offensive guys are there. Again, Didi Gregorius, who was formerly with the Yankees, he's a big-time player. Odubel Herrera is going to hold down that center field, but I say if he doesn't – and he has some talent. He could be hit or miss, though, but he has some talent. But I say you give Mickey Moniak some of that run as well and see what he can do. Of course, we know what B. Harper's going to do right there in that third spot. But at pitching, you got Zach Eflin, Zach Wheeler, Vincent Velasquez, Aaron Nola. You have some talent right there. And, of course, you have Hector Neris. So you have some talent in the pitching, but we'll see if they're able to be consistent and come through. But, Eddie, of course, we're going to talk more baseball as the weeks.
Hector Neris, didn't he sign with the Astros?
Did he sign with the Astros?
I think
he's
so.
with the Phillies now.
Did he? I thought he was with the Astros.
I don't know. He may be with the Astros. I know he's with the Astros last season.
Let me see this.
I
Did
think he
sign
may
with
be. You can check for that.
Yeah, I got to check right now.
Okay.
But go ahead.
But what I was going to say is, though, the only thing I'm saying is the Phillies have a chance to be very good.
He was with the Phillies last year. He's with the Astros this year.
Okay. Well, they need to replace him.
I could have swore they signed him here in free agency.
Okay, well, that's a good signing by the Astros.
A big addition to their
Thanks for that. That's a good signing.
Bullpen.
So, again, the Phillies have some talent on the pitching staff if they can be consistent. Eflin, Wheeler, Velasquez, Nola. So, with the offensive firepower they have, I want to see. If the Astros don't get a ring, I'm telling you right now, I want my boy B. Harp to get a ring. Now, of course, baseball season is 162
when it comes
games.
when it comes to root for teams, nobody's got a little side cart on their motorcycle like Greg does. He's always,
always
always got a little side cart on
man,
that
you know
Cowboys
what?
motorcycle or on that Rock.
Or the Chargers.
It'll be the Houston Rockets motorcycle with a little bitty Luka Doncic side cart.
And Luka's my favorite player in the NBA. Of course, I have some other players that I love as well in the NBA as well. But Luka's my guy, man. But I can't root for the Mavericks as my favorite team. But yeah, man. Again, I can have a favorite player and not root for him to do well. I mean, what's the whole point of him putting up those numbers? It's all about those chips at the end of the day. But I'll tell you this, of course, moving on, of course, we're going to talk some NCAA Final Four here coming up pretty soon. But, Eddie, I got to get your take on the infamous slap at the Oscars, man. What in the hell was going on right there?
Oh, man, dude, this has so many layers of stuff. First off, what everybody was asking themselves is this real or is this staged?
I wanted the same thing at first.
And to me, everything just kind of, I know a lot of people think it was staged. I thought it was real. It just the way it all unfolded. You see many different camera angles later on. You see, Will was kind of laughing at the joke, but you could tell the camera that was pointed at Jada, she was not amused one bit by the joke. And you get the view from behind Will, so you can't see his face when he's walking up to Chris. So you don't know what's on his face. But the slap looked real. It sounded real. And I got to say this.
You know what?
Man, Chris took it with so much class. Because you saw him, he's like, I
Class
could.
my ass.
He goes, I could. He
But
could have said some things, but he
break
just
down.
let it go.
Okay,
and then he
Eddie.
also issued an apology.
Yeah, I know he did. And now,
But
of
I
course
mean-
we're laughing about it now. And in the grand scheme of things,
They could have been fisticuffs.
Hey, Eddie, I want to analyze that I could part because I noticed him saying that as well. And of course, we're laughing and joking right now. At the end of the day, for black people, it doesn't look good because that just gives people the opportunity to say, see, there they go again. There they are fighting one another. When one makes it, they're like crowds. When one makes it, another one pulls them down. So that plays into the thought process and the stereotype of black people. It does. Now, let's get to what really happened, though. I mean, that's the thing. When it happened, now, I didn't even know about it. I didn't watch the Oscars. I was in bed. I got to get my
No, I wasn't watching it, but as soon as it happened,
let me tell you what happened.
Group chat blows up, so I go check it out on the internet.
That's what happened with me, man. I woke up, and I heard Dominique Foxworth say this the other day, too, and that's exactly how it happened with me. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I checked my phone, had some text messages on there, and that's when I saw it. And I'm looking like, damn, for real? Did that really happen? So when I saw the replay, when I replayed it, first I was like, I don't know, that looked kind of staged because you see when he hit it, it looks like something that you would see actually in a movie the way it happened. Now, to your point about Jada, when Chris Rock made the joke, to your point about Jada Pinkett, I think that's what made Will really think about, okay, well, I better go up here and do something because even though, now the thing about it, Will and Jada, I think they were in the front row. So it was nothing but space between him and Chris Rock. It wasn't like they were in somewhere way back where somebody could stop him. They were in the front row. So who ultimately won an Oscar, by the way.
Right.
And you heard when Denzel told him, hey, be careful because the devil can mess with you at your highest moment. And Will said that when he was emotional after he received his Oscar. And so he didn't know that he was going to receive his Oscar. But I'm going to tell you like this. Will's brand is actually going to grow from this. I don't care what no one says. You can say what's politically correct and all this and that, and you can feel how you feel about Chris Rock and how he, stood up and all this and that and say the things I said earlier about it's not a good look. But at the end of the day, it's actually going to help build Will Smith's brand.
Yeah.
Now,
people are on the fence. I've heard it split down the middle both ways.
Right. Now let me tell you this though, Eddie. When Jada Pinkett, when the comment was made, if you look at Will, he was kind of, even though he didn't look at Jada, he could see her out the corner of his eye, out of his peripheral vision. And he could tell right then that she didn't take too kindly to that joke. So I think that gave him a second he thought about it for a second like, damn, I don't think Miguel is too crazy about this joke right here. Took about 3 seconds to figure that out. Then he said, okay, well, I better go up here and do something. Now, granted, it's at the Oscars in front of millions. But if you think about all the turmoil and the way their names have been drug in the media over the years about how they're swingers and how they cheat on one another. Lately, it's been about Jada.
Oh, yeah, it was mostly
cheating.
About Jada with August Alsina.
Right. So I think that was him kind of trying to show the world, nah, look, we're cool, we're good. That's my wife, we're good, we're together as one, blah, blah, blah. So I think that was him doing that in that moment as well, and he just chose that time to show the world, hey, we're good. But what happened was, when he noticed that she was not smiling or anything, he went up there and he slapped the dog shit. Excuse my language. He slapped the dog shit out of Chris Rock. And the thing about it, man, now, Chris Rock, he's a comedian. I get it. But, bro, and I'm not the toughest guy in the world. I am not the toughest guy in the world. I don't claim to be the toughest guy in the world. And you win some, you lose some. But I'll tell you this, can no one come up there and slap the shit out of me on national TV? And then Will not only turned around and turned his back to him, Eddie, he turned around and walked off the stage with his George Jefferson walk. And it was nothing but space. Now, to your I could, I noticed he said that too, Chris Rock, I could. Okay, let's analyze these I coulds. There's nothing but space between us. I could follow him and swing on him. Now, I may get whooped, but I at least have to fight right here. I know it might look bad. It's on national TV in front of millions. But instinctively, I couldn't have taken a slap like that, somebody walking to me face to face, slapping me, and then just walking away like nothing happened. I don't give a damn where we are. Instincts alone, hey, bro, we're going to have to fight now. You might whip me or I might whip you, but we're about to move around in here. So I could walk up to him and hit him back, or I could do that and get my ass whooped, or I could just let him make it. And but I tell you what happened. I bet Eddie, I bet the next morning, you know how things can happen where some things happen, and then the next morning after you wake up, you be like, damn, was I dreaming or did that really happen? Was I dreaming? I bet Chris Rock woke up and he was like, I just got bitch slapped on national TV.
No.
Could you see him?
I mean, I think what I think happened. I mean, I just think he woke up. I don't think he had to wake up to realize anything. Chris Rock is a professional in that setting. He should have carte blanche to do whatever the hell he wants, say whatever he wants. The joke wasn't that bad. I don't think it merited the response that Will Smith gave, and I don't give a damn how much Jada didn't like it. I mean, this is what you do. This is what happens when you sit front row at you ever been front row at a comedy show? I go to the Improv here and there, and I've been front row whenever you get the VIP tickets, and they're going to say jokes about you. What am I going to do? Go up on stage and slap Craig Holcomb across the face because he made a joke about my girlfriend?
Right.
Like you can't do that, especially if you're Will Smith.
Right.
And what Chris Rock was saying whenever he said I could, what he meant was what I could say is I'll keep her name out my mouth when you can keep August Alsina out hers.
Hey,
and then he could have gone on with all that kind of stuff. And
you know what?
I mean, I'm just saying, Chris Rock. That's why I say he handled it like a G. That's why I say he handled it with class. Because, hey, look.
You know what?
Because in that setting, he ain't got nothing to prove. We all know Chris Rock is a scrawny comedian.
I got you.
I mean, you seen The Longest Yard? Half a star. He had half a star threat rating.
No,
you tell me you looking at Will Smith and Chris Rock. I'm gonna go out in a blaze of glory over Will Smith.
Well,
no, he's got a promising career. He's got a legendary career. Just let it go. The way he handled it, I couldn't have done it. But I'm saying Chris did.
Point.
He took the high road, the highest road, and I got to give him credit for it, man.
Okay, I give him credit for
the
taking
resolve of that man is
because, like I said earlier, it's not
to not only not react violently, but not to say anything.
I wasn't raised like that. I mean, somebody come slap the shit out of you like that, bro. I mean, you can't let him turn your back. You can't let him turn his back and walk away without you at least even walking him down. Like, bro, I mean. Even if you don't swing on him, you got
Greg would have jumped on his back and bit his ear.
Something, bro. You got to do something. And I'm thinking the next day. Now, as time goes on,
you're thinking he's like, nah, I gotta see Will now. I gotta see him now.
I'm seeing call his agent like, hey, you think you could hook up a fight where there's celebrity between me and Will? And because I can't let him bitch slap me like that and not do something. Could you think you could hook it up? And maybe I pay him $1 million under the table if make it looks like I won. I mean, because I guarantee the next day he woke up like, man, bro. And you know those slaps? You know those slaps or whatever. Have you ever, that looked like a slap right there. Now, I've never been slapped like that, but at least purposely. But you know something where you get hit or
Charlie
something.
Murphy has. Rick James got his ass. That's all I could think about was, what did the five fingers say to the face?
When tears starts coming down your eye, it's like,
dude,
man.
It's funny you say you win some, you lose some, because I thought that Will slapped him so hard that he looked like Willie Jones for a minute. I thought Willie Jones came back from the dead.
Hey, now you know.
I'm telling you, I'm not lying. He looked like Pops.
And then he walked away with a little smirk on his face. Part of that I could, too, was I could go fight him and swing on him, but this guy played Ali in the movie, and he was damn good. So when he talked to his agent the next day, he like, but nah, then again, he did play Ali in that movie, so I don't know. I might just have to chalk that one up as a loss. But I guarantee the next day, he was like, oh, man, maybe I should have retaliated. Man, that's just tough to take somebody slapping you like that and then calmly walking away and turning his back to you like that. Now, I get it. He was caught up in the moment. He was in shock. But again, instinctively, you're like, oh, hold up, bro. I mean, even if Will would have whooped him. But that's unfortunate, man, because I like both of those guys. Will Smith won that Oscar.
I just think in that setting, if we're like having a barbecue or something and this happens, I mean, it's totally different rules we're playing by. But when you're at the Oscars, man.
Well, there's some people say, well, maybe you should have waited till he got backstage. Bro, in a moment like that, you can't wait till you get backstage. You're caught up in the moment. You just got bitch slapped. You go handle that right
no,
then.
I think Will probably should have handled it backstage.
Will should have handled it backstage. Okay, now even in that situation, Will, again, it was a lot going on in Will's mind, I think. I don't think it was just a joke itself. I think that was him going through some stuff and hearing all the talk about his relationship with his wife. And I think that was
none of that is Chris Rock's fault.
I understand. But I just think
that's Jada Pinkett Smith's fault.
In that moment when he saw his peripheral vision that Jada didn't take too kindly to that, I just think instinctively that was his time to get up. And even if it was going to make an ass out of him, that was his time to get up and go handle his business. And when he did it, again, he was player about it. He slapped him and then kind of leaned back and then turned around and walked off with the George Jefferson walk. And Chris Rock was in shock. I get it, but woo, man,
I don't think anybody
that's a tough one to
expected
take
a
right
retaliation out of Chris. He's just
he's
just not
bro.
that dude.
And then when Will said, "Keep my wife motherfucking name out your mouth," then he reiterated, "Keep my mother." And Chris Rock's like, "I will." Yeah, I bet you will. You got to remember that dude played Ali in the movie. But hey, man. But as far as before we move on, the and like I said, that was one of those slaps where it's like, a tear. I mean, dude, you look at Chris Rock. Have you ever been at a movie or something to where, movie that kind of get to you, you get kind of emotional. Every blue moon. I'm not saying, I'm not gonna lie and say I never, shed a tear on a movie. but where a tear start running down your eye, and then you try to play it off, you try to yawn and make like, you yawning or something. Like, damn well you could.
What about old Gary Bertier the first time you watched Remember the Titans?
Huh?
What about old Gary Bertier the first time you watched Remember the Titans?
Hey,
that one got me the
movie.
first time. I'm not even gonna lie, man. And that's how it's funny how I romanticize sports, but I mean that was a good one, man. When we talk about a movie that gets you, that part with Gary.
One time I was babysitting my little niece, right? She 10 right now, like 2 at the time, and I was watching something. It kind of got to me, and I, she say, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying, Uncle Greg?" She was like 2. "Why are you crying, Uncle Greg?" I said, "Don't worry about it. Greg just got bad allergies. Uncle Greg got bad allergies. Come give me some sugar. Come give me some sugar and go finish playing with your toys."
It was probably after one of them Cowboys losses.
No. When I was a kid, I did after that San Francisco loss. But you know what, man? Again, bro, I just wasn't raised to take a bitch slap like that in front of millions. But Chris Rock, he's going to continue to get roles. And anybody that's thinking Will Smith is going to get, his brand is going to be hurt from this, wake up.
Nah.
Join the real world. Will Smith is actually going to come up from this.
I mean,
now,
he ain't got to. He really doesn't have to come up. I mean, the only thing that I hear going around Will Smith where I think he needs to improve his reputation is where the comments you see on Facebook is like, Will Smith is a cuck, like his wife. I mean, and then guys like me and you were laughing. We're like, well, I mean, I really got nothing for you to argue against that. I mean, we all know the whole story. I mean, it's a bad deal,
right.
But it is what it is. And I mean,
from Philly, man.
Whatever.
That Philly came out of it. He's not the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He's fresh off
I just felt like it was a bad deal.
Chris Rock's ass.
It was a bad deal for Chris. I think Chris was put in an impossible position.
Yeah, I mean.
And them dress shoes ain't got no grip.
I would agree with that.
Them dress shoes don't have no grip.
You slide. Hey, man, one time, I'm going to tell you the story. One time, me and my brother got into it. Of course, when we were kids, we did a lot, you know what I'm saying? But we were living together. This was probably early 2000s. We were living together in my condo. And we got into it. And the air conditioner wasn't working, man. The air conditioner wasn't working. And my brother,
the heat just
time, right?
heat makes sure.
Even though if you met him, you would never know that.
Make sure anxiety and your temper flare.
Bro, the electricity wasn't working, so we were already. So I'm sitting down in there, so we having a few words or whatever, and we having a few words or whatever, man. And I'm in socks. To your point about slipping, and I'm in socks. So he comes in there with some boxer shorts on and no shirt and some tennis shoes. What's up? What's up? What's up? So next thing you know, we start wrestling or whatever. Didn't swing a punch. Neither one of us swung a punch. But we started wrestling, man.
Boxers and tennis shoes. If that ain't straight county, I don't know what is.
Bro, he came in there with boxer shorts on, no shirt, and some tennis shoes, sweating. So we tied up and started wrestling or
That's
whatever.
whenever you know you're going to fight somebody, but you got to get a workout in first.
I slipped, man. He got on top of me, man. He could have held me out. He could have just started dwelling on me. But, he got up and stuff. But I'm saying to myself, man, if I wouldn't have had on these socks. But we were both in there sweating like we had done something.
You didn't have no grip, man.
I didn't have no grip,
You had no grip.
How you come here with tennis shoes and boxer shorts on, man? I'm in here in
He was ready to fight. Ain't no rules, man.
He come out the room like, what's up?
When the bell
What's
rings,
up?
it rings. Whatever you got on is what you got on.
I know.
He came prepared.
I know that's how it really goes. But I wasn't expecting him to
He
walk
came
out the room
prepared,
like
man.
that.
Yeah.
He was just talking. And next thing you know, he walk out the room. What's up? What? I say,
You
man,
know how most people lose fights, Greg?
Like
when the other dude do some stuff that you don't expect.
Yeah, I know. That's usually how it happens. I say, man, we haven't had a fight in like 20 years. Man, now I'm out to fight my little brother, bro. And even though he had put on some weight at that time, but we started wrestling. He was saying some stuff. We was wrestling like, ha, son. This when I learned that, man. And I started laughing like, boy, but that was funny. But to your point about slippage, so he did have on hard bottom shoes, but right then, You just have to take.
I just love all the layers of this onion you can peel back. It's just so funny. We're gonna be joking about this for a really long time.
man,
as long as everybody's okay, I hope. I'm sure they had a friendship.
There.
They've worked together for a long time. As long as they can mend fences, and they remain friends, they get past this. And then we can joke about this forever on the internet. It's great, man. I think it's good stuff. It'll be all right.
100%. I 100% concur with that, man, with that notion, and I agree with that. And I know, we've joked and we've said some things, and especially me and you too as well. But again, at the end of the day, it's not a good look for us.
Oh, I've been jamming that, man. I've been jamming that ever since it happened. I guarantee you, the play's done gone up. Like, is this a song that August Alsina wrote about that? Yeah, I think it is.
Hey, man, again, bro, and I wish Chris Rock well, tremendous at what he does. Hopefully this doesn't deter him for reaching this potential or for being a comedian that he's always been and for just doing what he has to do. Hopefully this doesn't deter him.
Well, continuing to have success, because they're both very, very successful at what they do.
Yes.
Now, swing right. We're going into the NFL. Deshaun Watson.
Okay,
we can talk the tournament. We can talk.
Which one you want to do first? It's your world.
We'll go ahead and get the tournament out of the way, because we all know that we're deeply saddened here on the sports court that the Cougars fall short of the Final Four. It would have been back-to-back Final Fours. How much fun would that have been? They made a good run, but Villanova choked them out, and I can't help but have nightmarish flashbacks, PTSD from the James Harden era with the Rockets, with all them missed threes. Greg, what happened?
You know what?
Was it really the Villanova D? But I didn't get to catch the very beginning of the game. But by the time I was tuning in, it seemed to me like they weren't just missing 3-pointers, not contested 3-pointers. They were missing wide open shots. They were missing layups as well.
I know.
It was brutal to watch, man.
Eddie, and you know what? That's the thing about March Madness, and what I always say, and leading up to March Madness, when we talked about what are the team's chances and things like that, and I always say, with one game, and again, this is not breaking news. I mean, anyone that knows anything about the NCAA tournament knows this, but with one game to play, if you're missing shots, I mean, it's going to be a long night for you. But the main thing is to be able to play some tremendous defense. But if you can do that as well, and that's one thing the Cougars,
I felt like they did that. It was a ground and pound, grinded out kind of game.
Yeah, it was.
And they were so close. You feel like if they hit, just a couple of those threes, if they shoot 20% instead of 5%, then we're talking about them playing in the Final Four.
I know, and it's sad to see. One thing about the University of Houston Cougars, Kelvin Sampson, they're going to be right back next year playing tenacious defense. Maybe they can get some more shooters, but I think the Cougars
next year
need
it's going to be here
6'10".
in Houston.
Yeah, there it is. I think the Cougars need a legitimate big man to man the paint. About 6'10", athletic. Of course, he has to fit into the mold of all those other players. But one thing you know about Kelvin Sampson, and you hear him barking over there on the sideline to his players, one thing about it, every possession, UofH is going to bring it with that intensity and with that tenacity. So you're going to get that. Now, of course, they have to make shots, especially when you play against teams, those blue bloods like Villanova, Duke, Kansas, North Carolina, and all those teams. And the Cougars they just did not make shots. But that's what happens in March Madness. You lose one and you go home. So it's not like a tournament or a series where you have a chance to redeem yourself. So the Cougars, great run by them. Of course, they made the Final Four the prior 2 seasons. So great run by them. I'm sure they're going to be just as explosive next season, no matter who they lose, no matter who they bring in, because we all know that Kelvin Sampson, he's going to recruit the people that's necessary to make his type of scheme and that fits into his culture and make his scheme work. So we know the Cougars.
And he's just a fantastic coach.
He's a fantastic
coach. He's a fantastic coach, especially at this level.
Yes. What did I tell you real quick before we talk? Stay tuned. We're going to talk a lot of NFL.
And I wanted to ask you too. Go ahead.
What did I tell you about Gonzaga? And, of course, Gonzaga lost. Arizona lost. Great job by St. Peter's. Great job by St. Peter's and their coach, Shaheen Holloway.
Peacock Nation, baby.
Yeah, Peacock Nation.
Peacock Nation. Spread them out.
And he's going to be with the Seton Hall, his alma mater, Seton Hall now is their head coach. But I like what they were able to do, making it to the Elite 8. I'm talking about as a 15 seed. So great job by them. But what did I tell you about Gonzaga? Of course, Kentucky lost. Baylor lost. Gonzaga. But what did I say about Gonzaga? I like Drew Timme. I love Chet Holmgren as a pro prospect. And I still think I still think Chet Holmgren is going to be a great pro. He showed some promise in the tournament. I mean, the guy in the first game, in one of the tournament games, he already had like 19 points, 21 rebounds, 6 blocks.
Yeah, he was the talk of the day.
Yeah. The game where they lost, he had 11 all in the second half, but they called some cheap fouls on him. But he had like 18 rebounds that game. What I like from Chet Holmgren and what I notice about him, no matter how wiry he is, he's a competitor. And he's one of those guys, now, not to mention his skill set. Now, but he's one of those guys who actually, of course, he's going to be a great rebounder, a great shot blocker, and he's going to add some weight. And he has good feet where he can move his feet as well. But what I like about him more than anything when I watch him play, he plays like a 7-footer, even though he has guard skills. He doesn't camp out around the perimeter. If the shot goes up, whether it's from his own team or somebody else, he's going for the rebound. He's going for the block shot. What I would like to see from him more, he can bring the ball up. He can shoot the three. He can take out the dribble. Where he can take his game to another level, of course he has to continue to work on all of his game, but he'll be the number 1 pick. Banchero will be the number 2 pick. But where he can really take his game to another level, he being Chet Holmgren, is I saw too many times where he would break somebody down off the dribble at 7-1, break somebody down off the dribble, get inside the paint, inside the three-point line, and have a chance for a pull-up mid-range shot, and he'll look to pass it. I think once he develops that mentality like Kevin Durant, like my mid-range game, because he can raise up over anybody. He's 7-1. But I saw way too many times he would beat his man off the dribble, get to a spot inside the paint, and look to pass. Bro, just raise up. You got your man by, 7, 8 inches? Raise up and nail that shot. But he can take it to the rack. He can do all these things. So,
that's
Gonzaga.
That's something Yao Ming was so good at, that mid-range game,
but
man. It was lethal.
One thing, Eddie, about college basketball, before we move on to NBA, of course, the Final Four, we'll briefly touch on that. But got a lot of NFL. We're still good on time right now. But one thing about it, Eddie, and like I made the comment last year about Gonzaga, nothing against Gonzaga when they played Baylor in the championship. Gonzaga is the team that plays at the court with the chains on them. Baylor was the team last year in the championship game. You can tell they played on the court with the no nets. And what happens is, let me put y'all up on game. What happens is, I don't care how talented you are. That's why I was never big. Everybody picking Gonzaga in their bracket. Oh, Gonzaga is going to. Bro, no, they're not. Because you know what I've seen from Gonzaga year in and year out? No matter how skilled and talented they are, when you get to these games against some of these super athletic teams, the court is only so big. And you can only go so far and do so much dribbling the basketball. When you're getting hounded like that by Arkansas team who plays tenacious defense and you're getting hounded, I don't care what kind of skill you have. If you have nowhere to go or nowhere to roam, game over. And that's what happened.
Hey,
all the skill
doubt.
Gonzaga had just did not have enough athleticism.
When you look at the way this year's bracket broke down, I mean, you were going to have to face one of them grinded out, really tough defensive teams if you were going to have a chance to make this Final Four.
Right.
I mean, flat out. You were going to have to
Real
be
talk.
able. You look at Gonzaga, they're a sports car, man. They like to go, go, go. You know, they're big time shooters. They run. But a lot of the teams in this tournament, the tougher teams, were these teams that were willing to play you in a 58 to 55 basketball game, and you just felt like Gonzaga didn't really have that in them.
They didn't.
And you look right out of the gate, you know, Georgia State, even though it wasn't close in the end, you know, they're hanging around and making Gonzaga really work for that opening game, and then you see exactly how tough Memphis really ran them sort of down to the wire all game long. Memphis right there with Gonzaga. You almost felt like, well, if they go and play the way they played against Memphis, against Arkansas, they're going to run out of air and asphyxiate, and they did.
They did.
And you know, they are one of the, you know, blue blood. You can call them a blue blood program, but yeah, they are also one of the teams that, you know, bettors and people like me and you who like to wager stuff on the side, we're betting on them to fall up short. You know, I thought they were going to fall short to Memphis. I'm being honest. I got a few points with a buddy of mine. I'm taking Memphis. They just were an underperforming team in these pressure situations.
Right.
When the coach on the other side knows all he's got to do to take you out of your game is grind the tempo of this thing down to nothing.
That's it, man. And that's what happens. Again, there's only so much room on the court. And when you're getting hounded and hawked by some tenacious defense, and you don't really have the athleticism and the foot speed, even with their guards, to really offset that. I mean, it's not too much you can do. And that's what I've always noticed from Gonzaga, like you're saying, like we've said. When you get into the tournament, you get deeper into the tournament, and these teams become more athletic and more tenacious to go along with the talent. It's always seemingly too much for Gonzaga to overcome. Now a team like Duke, now going
so
to the
I want
final
to ask you real quick. What do you how do you feel about this all, blue blood Final Four? You got
really
UNC, Duke, Villanova, and Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas, the lone number 1 seed to survive all the way to the Final Four. I mean, it's going to be some great basketball, but I mean, how do you feel about these matchups? I'm disappointed Houston's not in it, but I mean, Coach K, it's going to be the swan song Final Four. I think that's a big deal. Them making it there, Duke making it there, and Coach K getting an opportunity to walk away winning a national championship. That'll be a story I'm going to keep my eye on. But what do you see looking at these 4 powerhouse teams in the Final Four?
Like you said, Eddie, 4 blue bloods for sure. And of course you have Coach K and Duke, who I think have the most NBA talent of any team. Of course, all these teams have some NBA talent. But I think, I mean, you look at the loss for Villanova with Justin Moore, with his torn Achilles, that's going to hurt them. Kansas, of course, they have Ochai Agbaji and so they have some players. I mean, of course, Duke has the point guard Roach, Paolo Banchero, Mark Williams. But you have Duke, and kudos to Hubert Davis, a former Duke player, getting this team to the Final Four in his first year as head coach. Now, if he's able to accomplish and garner that national championship in his first season, that'd be a huge accomplishment. Now, of course, he has to play against the rival Duke and the Hall of Famer, the best college coach of all, well, second behind John Wooden, and Coach K. So we'll see how that pans out. But I think that's going to be, now you have 2 teams, Duke, who lost that final game to North Carolina, the season finale. But I think what that did for Duke is, even though they lost to Vatech in the ACC tournament game, I think what that did for Duke, that re-energized them because of that embarrassing loss in Coach K's final game. And Coach K called him out after that game and said he don't know what happened, but that can't happen. And even though they lost the next game, well, the championship in the ACC to Vatech, I think they've re-energized themselves. I think now what you're seeing from Duke, you're seeing that NBA talent really starting to gel together. So the longer they've played together as the season wanes on, they've gotten used to what Coach K wants. And so I think they're just gelling right now at the right time. North Carolina, their team, I mean, if you look at their, what you got, Bangkok, North Carolina, 28-9, number 8 seed in the East. Of course, Duke, 32-6, number 2 seed in the West region. Duke, great at defending without fouling, weak on the defensive rebounding side of things, but they have a very talented offense, of course, with all those offensive players, of course. But you look at North Carolina, their weakness has been in creating turnovers on the defensive side, but they've been scoring at will as of late, man. And you got your guy, Armando Bacot, a double-double machine. He's a guy that's playing down low and doing some major things for them. Brady Manick, of course, you have R.J. Davis, Caleb Love. So that game right there is going to be interesting. These are 2 teams. Of course, these are rivals that know each other. You would like to see that game in the championship game. You really don't want to see that as a semifinal game, but that's how they made it, so that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a semifinal game, so either Duke will prevail or North Carolina and Hubert Davis. So it's going to be a great storyline coming out of that game regardless of who wins. But I think Duke finds a way to win that game. Now, my ex-roommate in college, he's a big North Carolina fan, have been even since we were at Ohio State. He's a big-time North Carolina basketball fan. So he's rooting for North Carolina, of course. But that's going to be a great game. Banchero, I like what he's been doing as of late. Now I'd say that about Chet Holmgren. As far as the guy that's ready to jump in and play in the NBA right now, body-wise, it can come in and, I don't think he's ready. He's NBA ready. That's Paolo Banchero. And what he's doing now, he's not settling for three-point shots. I mean, he can take you off the dribble. He can pass the ball off the dribble. He can get to the hole. He can post up. I mean, so I like what he's able to do as well. He looks like a great pro prospect at 6'10", and a body like Karl Malone. So the talent is there. So I like Banchero. I like Mark Williams, the other guy they have down low playing, AJ, I can't remember. But you have Roach at point guard and Hubert Davis, a guy who's been there, who's doing a great job in his first season. And Eddie, as far as the Villanova game, I mean, hey, what does Villanova have? Again, they don't have Justin Moore. That game right there, you have Kansas, 32-6, number 1 seed in the Midwest region. Of course, we saw that they were a great defensive team as well. Great scoring wings and Agbaji and Christian Braun, very powerful. Then Villanova, your boy at Villanova, what's your guy's name at Villanova? The white guy who can light it up. The white guy.
I forget. I know exactly who you're talking about.
I'm about to tell you right now before we get ready to move. Colin Gillespie. He can fill it up. He can fill it up. So it's going to be 2 competitive games. I mean, we'll talk more about it next week. We really don't have a whole lot of time to really delve into it. You can say what you want to say about it. But kudos to the women that's made it. Paige Beckers at UConn. She's the real deal, bro.
Man, UConn women's basketball year in, year out, huh? For as long as I can remember. But with Kansas, man, it's just their ability.
South Carolina looking good as well.
They're so good to me that not just because they're the 1 seed. They're the favorites to win this all the way through. Villanova's got a tall task, I think, to take out Kansas. Kansas is just so good. For me, what makes the biggest difference, the reason I like them over Villanova, is their ability to get rebounds, and particularly offensive rebounds. Kansas is getting second chance points at an astronomical rate. I think they're getting 35%
with Big David McCormick
of their offensive shots that they miss. They're rebounding and getting second chance opportunities. And that's huge, especially in these tournament games.
Absolutely.
And also, those second chance points or second chance opportunities also lead to a lot of fouls. And I think that puts things in Kansas's favor as well. You get Villanova into foul trouble. We saw how well they shot from the line, but you turn the tables on them and you're at the line a lot. And I think it's really going to put a hiccup in what Villanova wants to do. Kansas, they're sitting pretty right where they want to be, looking at running this thing all the way through.
There it is. Hey, so we definitely look forward to this upcoming weekend's Final Four games. Definitely look forward to that, and we'll break those down next week. But it's time to move on to some NFL. We still have about another 45 minutes at least in here, so we're not going to shortchange you on anything. We're going to talk some NBA before we get out of here as well. Of course, the NBA playoffs are near and dear to our hearts, so that's coming up in full swing, coming up real soon here. So things are in full swing right now. Getting the seeding going as far as the NBA is concerned, and we're going to see whether these teams fall in the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. But the fact of the matter is, it's not going to matter as much as you think with how competitive these teams are, and it's going to be a very, very interesting playoffs. We'll break down a couple of teams and storylines that's going on later. But I want to get Eddie Cox's take, the wonderful Eddie Cox. I want to get his take on, of course, big-time Houston Texans fan right here. I want to get your take on Deshaun Watson going to the Cleveland Browns.
I didn't see that coming. I thought for sure he wanted to go home and play in Atlanta.
Right.
I almost thought it was a done deal. Cleveland comes out of nowhere and offers him the biggest contract in NFL history, and how could he turn it down? They'll tell you, and you've heard everything in the press conferences and in the interview with Deshaun Watson, it wasn't about the money. But let's face it, Cleveland was out.
When they say it's not about the money, it's about the money.
Cleveland was out. It was either going to be New Orleans or Atlanta. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I think, what was it, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the news broke that Deshaun Watson was going to be a Cleveland Brown. The haul comes in. You immediately feel like it's a little bit light. And then Deshaun Watson goes to Cleveland, has the press conference, says a few things that maybe rub some people the wrong way about not having regrets, this, that, and the other.
Okay, what about you? Didn't he rub you the wrong way?
Well, no, I don't know what you expect Deshaun to say.
Right.
The point that I'm getting to is then these depositions start up with Tony Busby, and all of a sudden, as a Texans fan, you're breathing a sigh of relief because that's not your quarterback they're talking about anymore.
Gotcha.
And you start to see as things unfold that, we kind of I thought that Deshaun was going to be able to avoid suspension because of the time he sat out with the Texans.
He's probably messed with him, Deshaun, before.
I don't think that. I don't think that is the case. So as momentum is building up for Deshaun Watson to serve a suspension, and we know with the draft picks traded to Houston that is going to play, really key in where that pick ends up lying next year. And then you start to get excited about the Texans and the picks they have in this draft. what they're going to have in future drafts after feeling like we've been sitting on the sidelines every year, not having a pick until the third round, not once, but twice in the last 3 years.
Right.
The Texans haven't had a pick in the first 2 rounds. That's insane. And now we're going to have 2 picks, seemingly so, maybe more in the next 3 drafts. It's a big deal. It's disappointing the way the whole Deshaun Watson saga and era ended in Houston. But ultimately, now I feel like I'm better off that it is somebody else's problem and not the Texans, because Deshaun Watson's problems, they're not quite over yet. And here in Houston, we're ready to move on.
There it is. There it is. Hey, and I really don't have a whole lot to say about Deshaun Watson at this point other than he inked a big-time deal that I know he's very happy with. So it's going to be fun to see what he still has left in the tank as far as his football skills are concerned. And really, I don't have any doubt that he's going to be the Deshaun Watson that we all know. But the last time we were in here, I was saying that I think out of the teams that he had listed, that Cleveland was the best for him football-wise. Now, he did make that U-turn after saying that he was not going to go to Cleveland. And, of course, they offered him that type of money. But at the end of the day as well, I think the chance to actually win more sooner than later, played a part in it as well. So, obviously, with the Browns are loaded now. They're going to be without Baker Mayfield now. We could talk about that for a second. I don't know where he goes. I don't know where he –
The market has dried up for Baker. I mean, whenever Matt Ryan gets traded to Indy, the Baker market dried up. And that was kind of one of the things that, I was – looking at underneath the whole scenario with Deshaun Watson going to Atlanta. I'm like, okay, you think about Houston. They're trading Deshaun Watson to Atlanta. Are they going to really be hurting themselves by setting up a scenario where Matt Ryan comes to Indy? Turns out that ended up happening anyway. That was just going to happen. Once they started discussing, younger quarterback, Matt Ryan felt like it was best for him to go ahead and move on. That's what he did. But I was wondering if the Texans were considering that. But ultimately, in the end, it looks like they had negotiations, basically pretty much worked out. There were going to be some fine-tuning to it once Deshaun made his decision. But ultimately, it would sit around and wait for Deshaun Watson to decide where he wanted to go while the teams feverishly worked, at trying to sweeten the pot for him. And Cleveland just came with a sweetener that nobody else could top.
Right. And I think initially one of the reasons that he actually said that he did not want to go to Cleveland was obviously because of the weather. But I think when he weighed everything as far as, okay, where do I have the best chance to win with all the, with these teams right here, that Atlanta, of course, they're probably in a rebuild mode. They're probably going to draft a receiver with their first pick.
It probably would have been a couple of years there in Atlanta
right. So with Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney,
New Orleans,
now New Orleans did re-sign Jameis Winston. I do like that move. I like that for Winston.
There's no Sean Payton, so New Orleans really loses its luster to me without Sean Payton. If I'm Deshaun Watson,
I agree with that. So we'll see what happens. But Deshaun Watson, make what you will about if you're happy for him or if you don't like the fact that he's getting this kind of money and the situation that he put a lot of these women in allegedly. The fact of the matter is, I feel for those women. If those things are true, he's maintained, like I said a long time ago, that he's maintained his innocence and he's not going to settle with anyone because he wants to clear his name. Now, we'll see where that leads as far as a suspension and things of that sort. But, of course, Cleveland worked out some things to where it would not affect him if it happened next season. But the suspension may not come to season after next.
Because they take, when you're suspended, your game check goes to the NFL, right? So
we'll see.
And the thing about it is, like, I don't even think they're going to wait for it to play out because I feel like people in the community who deal with the NFL, their sponsors, they are going to want Deshaun Watson to face some sort of punishment before stepping onto the field and immediately performing under this, massive contract that he has. That's why I feel like they're going to do something this season. They could sit around and wait forever, but then all it's going to be is, this little bit, by little coming out in the depositions, for people to speculate about. Go ahead and do your investigation. When you're done with your investigation, punish the guy for what you feel like it is according to the personal conduct policy, and then everybody can move on. Cleveland is going to have a problem, with their sponsorship, but they're going to have to handle that. They knew that when they took on Deshaun Watson to begin with.
Right. And the thing about it is, like I said before,
they're willing to make a deal with quote the devil to go for hey, because look, let's face it, they're now, if they're not Super Bowl favorites with Deshaun Watson in the lineup, then they're pretty damn close.
Even though they lost Jarvis Landry, they got Amari Cooper. from my Cowboys. So that's a weapon for him right there to go along with their run game and the offensive line and defense. So the Browns are looking good. Now, as far as the sponsorship and things like that, of course they're going to take a hit, and the Browns knew they were going to take a hit public relations-wise initially. But I think they're just there to weather the storm. Hopefully Deshaun Watson could change a lot of that.
That's all you can do in their position. That's all you can do.
At the end of the day, but what have I always said, though? At the end, and like this is nothing new to you. You know that at the end of the day, it's about the talent. Can this person help you win football games? Talk about Antonio Brown. And that's the case with Deshaun Watson. Now, if he's guilty of these crimes, which he's not going to be charged criminally, so I can only go by that. And now he didn't answer the question about why would you need 40 women. I think he said something to the effect of, well, that's how business is. Something. I don't like his answer he gave, even though he can't.
And think
really
about it, there's
answer too
still
much.
like 45 more hours of depositions that are going to come out.
Right. So he's going to have to go in, do some great things in the community, show that he regrets, even though he didn't say too much and didn't show too much remorse because he's still maintaining his innocence. So if he goes in there and really talks about how remorseful he is, that's kind of contradictory. So of course he's going to, say, hey, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I can't really say too much right now, blah, blah, blah. And Deshaun Watson just wants to get on the field, help the Cleveland Browns win football games, and in his eyes, hopefully a lot of this stuff whips aside, and hopefully he will continue to be the guy that he was noted for being before all these allegations came about. Now, let's not forget, Deshaun Watson he was noted for being a great guy in the community, and so he wants to get back to that, do the right things, win football games. All that other stuff off the field, the way people feel right now, all that would take care of itself because we know this is a forgiving country. And again, nobody got killed. And of course, those are serious allegations, not to deflect the seriousness of those allegations. But he was found innocent so far, or he's not going to be charged criminally. We'll see what happens in the civil case. But
hey, you and I knew that at the very least, Deshaun Watson was going to be the light that was going to be shed on it was not going to be positive light at the end of this, no matter what. At the very least, he did some unsavory,
at
things.
The very least, he made some
bad decisions,
right.
And we'll see, how he decides to build his reputation back in the community, whether he chooses to, come clean and maybe own up to some sort of, let's say, taking responsibility for, some sort of ownership.
Or just for being stupid.
That's what I'm saying. For just being in that position, period.
He did initially before things really played out, but now he's kind of backtracked on being that remorseful. And so we'll see what happens moving forward with that. Mm-hmm. But of course, also Tyreek Hill. Okay. Now, and I want to get your take on Tyreek Hill, man. Tyreek Hill leaves the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, of course, the Chiefs are the team that I pick every year in the AFC, especially since Mahomes has been there. Now, the Chargers is a team I root for in the AFC now as well. They're looking good. I like some things that they did in free agency as well. But the Chiefs losing Tyreek Hill, that's a major blow for the Chiefs. Now, in the draft, they have the 28th and 29th pick. Now, they lost him for 5 draft picks to the Miami Dolphins. What does that do to the Kansas City Chiefs? Of course, it takes away some of that explosiveness. Now, the Chiefs are going to have to get them a receiver in the first round.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. They are setting their sights on somebody in the first round, and they may also be setting their sights on trading for a veteran. I mean, I think that's certainly in play. Mm-hmm. They have picks to play with. They got them back in the Hill deal. They've got picks they can play with. If they need to move up, they can move up. If they want to sit tight and see what they get, this is a pretty deep draft. I like the prospects that are on the board. Yes. But I think they're going to be
at the wide receiver position.
I think they're going to be in play, Greg, for multiple wide receivers, not just one, because it's not just Hill that's gone. Robinson is gone. Pringle is gone, I believe. Or is it I know Pringle's gone for sure. It's Pringle's gone. Watkins is gone. We know he's in Baltimore. Yeah. They had at one time one of the most electric receiving cores with Watkins and Robinson and Mecole Hardman. And now I think Hardman is the only guy left standing. I think Robinson's in Oakland. The Bears, I think, have Pringle. It's a completely different wide receiver room. So I guarantee you, they may not just be looking at one. They're probably looking at trying to get two guys, and they've got a plethora of picks to work with. And I also look at them to try to sign or trade for a veteran around the league.
Yeah, well, they got Juju Smith-Schuster,
right,
who's not the deep threat that Tyreek Hill is. Now, one thing about Tyreek, and then of course, Scantling from Green Bay, Valdez Scantling, who can actually run, so that'll help keep the defense honest. And see, the thing about it, what Tyreek Hill gave the Chiefs was, of course, now these teams, it's going to affect the way teams play Kansas City because Tyreek Hill was so explosive that the defense had to stay honest. Now what's going to happen is, until they prove otherwise, now you could probably bring a safety up in the box, and you could do some things on the defense side of the ball to negate what Kansas City wants to do. But now, so whoever you draft or whoever you put at Tyreek's position, you still, and I know Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I know, now of course this was about the money as well. They didn't feel that they could sign him long term and still be able to fill in some holes on their team. So I think they feel that the football acumen that they have, Andy Reid and that coaching staff, and to go along with the talent that Patrick Mahomes has, I think they feel that Mahomes is going to make anybody that's at the wide receiver position better. But what it does now is, whoever you put out there at that position, you have to continue to run a lot of deep patterns. If anything, take your shots to at least keep the defense honest enough to know, hey, we still are an explosive offense that likes to make big plays. Of course, you still have Travis Kelce, the best tight end in the game right there. Juju Smith-Schuster is not a speed burner, but he's going to be a great possession receiver for you. They're still counting on your boy,
Mecole Hardman?
No. The guy that always got suspended for all the drugs. But your boy,
Josh Gordon?
They're still depending on Josh Gordon, which I don't know why.
He's still on the roster. I honestly don't expect him to make the team. I think a rookie is going to take his place.
But they want him to make the team.
I mean, right now if you look at their
big body receiver.
Right, but if you look at their roster today, if they were to start and walk out on the field today, he wouldn't be starting. It'd be Juju Smith-Schuster, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, and Mecole Hardman as your three wide receivers lining up. And and people have been hoping, they've been waiting on Josh Gordon a long time. I just think when they bring in these young guys, there's going to be no room for him.
Well,
now they brought in MVS.
But I think they really want him to succeed.
It ain't going to happen. They brought in it's just not. There's just no more room. You got an opportunity to bring in young receivers. You can't have him eating up a roster spot.
He's not the same
player. He is eating up a very
precious
roster spot if you draft two wide receivers in the draft this year.
And here's this with Josh Gordon.
Even if you draft one.
And I agree with you about Josh Gordon. And I thought before he got – but when he was in New England, he had one good year, I think. Then I thought he really dropped off after that. But he's lost a step. Now, he has the physical tools you would think – to be a great wide receiver, but come on, man. What has it been since 2016, since the guy had that big year in Cleveland? I mean, they keep waiting on Josh Gordon to actually be this superstar wide receiver that they're hoping for. I think the best bet for Josh Gordon, if you want to get the best out of Josh Gordon at this point in his career,
XFL.
I think you play him behind Travis Kelce, or you play him at tight end, use him in some tight end packages, and you use him like that. You draft somebody, they can probably move up.
If this was John Madden football, it might work. I don't think Gordon has a tight end.
He's athletic enough to be a tight end.
I think he has a tight end body. I mean, yeah, you can line him up in that position.
He's about 6'4",
but nope.
230.
You gonna run the ball behind him? I don't think he's got. I don't think he's got it in him to do that.
Packages with in the pass game, but if he wants to play tight end, he would have to get adapted to blocking, of course.
Now look, Greg, they brought in Marcus Valdez-Scantling. We were talking when we talk about this offense and how it's going to change.
Okay.
They brought in Marcus Valdez-Scantling because you said it's very important, that they still are able to attack the field vertically.
Right.
That's what opened up so many things for their offense is having that vertical threat of Tyreek Hill, who can get deep on you anytime or who can turn a 5-yard slant into a touchdown. They don't have that anymore. Marcus Valdez-Scantling gives you speed on the outside. He can stretch the field, but he's kind of a one-trick pony. That's
He
kind of
is.
all he's
I
got.
agree.
And
I agree.
we've watched him on primetime with Green Bay. He's a one-trick pony.
Mm-hmm.
You got to hope that maybe he develops, a couple more moves. And then Juju
And
Smith-Schuster.
that's up to Andy Reid now to bring that out of him.
Absolutely. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster, you're hoping that getting him, you can get the Juju of about 2 or 3 years
Agreed.
ago. You're hoping you can get a guy
He's
that
still
is going
only
to
like
be a
25,
quarterback's
if
best
that.
friend.
Right.
You feel like when you evaluate him, you hope that he was more held back by the offense in Pittsburgh than him holding back the offense. Now, I'm not entirely sure that that's true because
No.
there's a lot of factors at play in
That's a
Pittsburgh.
good point,
but
though.
there is an opportunity here for
Roethlisberger's
Juju
form.
Smith-Schuster to get
Yeah.
back to the
Agreed.
form, that he
Agreed.
was once at when we thought he was a top receiver
Agreed.
in this league and a guaranteed early pick in your fantasy draft. You
Agreed.
hope that Mahomes has something for him. But where they're really going to miss Hill the most is across the middle and how the way it opened
Catch
up
and
things
run.
for Travis Kelce vertically. Because Travis Kelce had the speed to get deep. You can attack vertically with him over the middle and in between the seams because of how talented he is. And the reason why it was always open is because they still had to worry about that pesky Hill, coming across
Yeah.
the field on a drag that you almost couldn't defend.
Agreed.
They're not going to have that in their bag anymore. They can use Mecole Hardman in certain ways, but let's face it, I feel like if you put a little bit too much on Mecole's plate, you might get him hurt. Tyreek Hill
He's
was
okay as a wide
he is
receiver.
okay, but what I'm saying is I don't like him being that focal point. Tyreek was so good, he could move so fast through the places where the traffic was so thick
Yeah.
and come
And
out
confined spaces.
unscathed,
Yeah.
And that's not something that
And you know
a
what else
lot of
about Tyreek
players
Hill?
with that top end speed can do, Greg.
That's true. And, I've always noted his route running ability. You remember in the Super Bowl,
It is unbelievable
It's
how good
unbelievable.
he is.
And then he's low to the ground. He's a great runner after the catch. So he's also the type of guy that, and we'll talk about how it pertains to Tua for a quick second as well before we talk some NBA. Of course, I want to get your take on Devontae Adams real quick as well. But Tyreek Hill, I agree, he's a great route runner, and that's what gets lost as far as Tyreek Hill. He's not only explosive and taking it deep and blowing up the 9 route. Again, he can run any route on the field. He can also be a possession receiver. But you get the ball in his hands, and he can make some things happen. So,
You
they're
saw
gonna
it in
have
that
to
playoff
adjust.
game against the Bills, Greg, that how Tyreek Hill single-handedly kept him in
Absolutely.
that game.
Absolutely.
Single-handedly
Absolutely. You
by
see that
breaking the
touchdown he
field
caught
wide
across
open.
the field?
Yes.
Bye-bye. But, okay, real quick before we move on from Kansas City, here's what I think. I think the 28th and 29th pick, of course, they're going to take a wide receiver. And if they move up and they can get Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave, because if you can get Chris Olave, which both of those guys will be gone if they stay put. If you can get Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson will be gone. If you can get Chris Olave is a tremendous deep threat. Now, plus, he's somebody that can fit as a rookie, and you see what some of these rookie receivers has been doing as of late. Look at Jamar Chase. Look at you see Justin Jefferson.
Just
you see
look at
these
the
guys,
track record, Greg. Look at the track record of that
at these
team.
guys.
Kansas
Yeah.
City is a place where young receivers, they don't have to be first-round draft picks to go there
They
and to
thrive.
flourish.
They thrive. So the thing is, if Chris Olave comes from a system, hypothetically speaking, if they can get Chris Olave, he will fit right in that role because he's a great deep route runner, and he's a great route runner, period. Plus, coming from an Ohio State program with that offense under Ryan Day, he's ran every route on the route tree, so nothing is going to be too creative for him. He catches the ball with his hands. He's very confident, again, and he's explosive on the deep patterns. I think out of all the receivers in the draft, Chris Olave fits best in Kansas City with what they have. I don't think he'll be there. Now, if Jameson Williams is there from Alabama, who was actually at Ohio State before he transferred, if Jameson Williams is there, of course, he's coming off the ACL, but he's also a guy toward the end of the season. What you do with him, you let him get healthy. He may come in healthy. You know how quick these guys are healing now. He may come in healthy to start the season. He may come in running a 4.3 to start the season. But probably around week 8 or something like that, you get him into the fold. He's blowing by people. He can also do some underneath stuff. But Jameson Williams is the guy, something like that. If you're sitting there at 29, if you're Kansas City, in my opinion, at 28 or 29, I think you take a chance on, unless Chris Olave is there. But as far as it pertains to Tua and Tyreek Hill, real quick, Eddie, Tua's going to have to throw the ball downfield now. You have Jalen Waddle. You have Tyreek Hill. Of course, those guys can be possession receivers who can actually run after the catch and score from anywhere on the field. But now Tua has every weapon at his disposal. There's no excuses.
Oh, dude, when you look at their offense and the way it's built, it almost looks like it's Chiefs, South Florida.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, you look at now that they've added Tyreek Hill, they've got the speed with Jalen Waddle. They got the big tight end with Gesicki. And he's a guy that seems like every year he's just getting better and better. I mean, he's had the body, he's had the ability, he's had those wow plays where he surprised you, have a big game here and there. But now the consistency's starting to come into play where he's like a baby Kelsey. I mean, he really is. Like, he's on the cusp of becoming that kind of guy. I know that defensive coordinators, when they have the Dolphins on their schedule coming up, they are looking at how they are going to limit the way Mike Gesicki hurts their defense, because he's going to one way or another. And then now that they've added Tyreek Hill, it's only gotten more difficult for them. Didn't they
wish Brian Flores is still there.
Didn't they also add? Did they add your boy Wilson from the Cowboys? If I'm not
yes,
mistaken?
they did.
So now they added some more speed and some more hands, and they still have the guys that they like and they've had for a while in Devontae Parker and Preston Williams, which are journeymen in the league and guys who could still contribute. But they could throw the ball down the field. But to me, I don't think they necessarily have to. When you have that kind of speed, I mean, we've seen it. The Chiefs, without always, you have to let them think that you will.
Right,
but you think about where they're really going to eat. They're really going to eat in 5 to 10 yards, because that's where those guys are going to be able to get free early. You get the ball in the playmaker's hands at the shortest distance. You know what I mean? That way, it's the lowest risk. Right. You let Tua work his way up to being a big-time gunslinger. I think he has it in him. I mean, I've seen him. We saw him in the national championship come in, throw the ball around. He wasn't afraid to throw it deep. We know he's got it in him. He's growing at the NFL level. I think he feels a lot better now that this Deshaun Watson saga is over, and he knows that the Dolphins have confidence in him. And if anybody around the league is getting their organization to put talent around them and to build a team around them, it's the Miami Dolphins, and it's Tua. I mean, he's getting the treatment that Aaron Rodgers wishes he'd gotten his whole career.
Hey, let me ask you this. Great segue.
If he doesn't do it now, I guarantee you they're in the draft. If it doesn't happen this season, they are in the draft for a quarterback next year. You can guarantee it. Take it to the bank right now. First round, they will draft one if Tua does not succeed with this group that they've put around him right now here in Miami.
I totally agree. And one thing about Tua, great kid. I've always liked listening to him in interviews. Always says the right things. And not necessarily says the right things, but he's humble. He's positive. He's very good positive energy, and he's very optimistic, and I like that about him. To go along with his talent, and I agree, he has the talent to make some things happen. I don't want people to link him to Patrick Mahomes. Just because Patrick Mahomes has a cannon for an arm, you can't expect Tua to have the same type of arm that Patrick Mahomes. As long as he can get the ball downfield, and when these guys are running on streak routes, he's probably just going to have to throw it a tad bit sooner
but think
than
about
Patrick
it,
Mahomes
Greg.
was doing.
Like they run some of the same concepts, Andy Reid and Mike McDaniel, but in Mike McDaniel's offense, that's more of a Kyle Shanahan West Coast style scheme.
Yeah.
You feel like Tua can they can get the most out of Tua, and he doesn't have to throw it deep unless they scheme it open and it's wide open. You've seen it at the level where he's had success at the collegiate level. When those guys are running wide open, he has no problem hitting them.
Right.
And you see that a lot in those offenses where you get the bootleg going, you get the play action going. You feel like Tua can kind of be the Tua Tagovailoa that he wants to be without having to take off and run all the time.
Precision.
And without having to run for his life. They can get him out on the edge in the bootleg. They can do things that the Chiefs necessarily don't do, and it's going to open up some new doors, and you're going to see some new wrinkles that Tyreek Hill is going to add to this offense that maybe you didn't necessarily see under Andy Reid in Kansas City.
I agree, man. I mean, I like his accuracy. I like his competitive spirit. And he came from a place like Alabama, so he knows how to win. He knows about winning. Again, his freshman season came off the bench for Jalen Hurts, led that team to the national championship drive in overtime. So he knows what it feels like to win as well. So once he gets some more wins under his belt, and I think he can really be the true leader of that team, I think now they're getting used to his voice in the huddle. They're getting used to what he expects out of them, command-wise, like you stated earlier about now he's confident that they believe in him. That's very important. So he's going in with a clean slate this season, feeling good about himself, feeling like he's the guy. And, again, he has all the weaponry around him now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing
And
what
think
Tua
about
is able
this,
to do.
too, Greg. It's one more year of health in that hip, one more year of building up strength, one more year of confidence
in that hip.
one more year of him getting back to being a really 100%, because we know that injury. That's one of those things, even though he can get back on the field, he's still not 100, 1,000% how he was beforehand or how he was before he got drafted. And I think the further we get on down the road in his career, this year's probably the year where you see him be about as close to 100%, if not 100%, with that hip.
I agree, Eddie. Real quick, Devontae Parker, before
you said the magic word a second ago, though. You said overtime.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And there's a big rule change in the NFL. The owners approve a change in overtime, not for the regular season, so just hold your hat. You're not going to get to look at this rule or get to see this rule in action during the first 18 weeks of the NFL regular season. But however, when we cross over into the playoffs,
they didn't get 2 chances.
When you get into the playoffs, now both teams will get to possess the football, even if the team who possesses it first scores a touchdown. After last year's playoff extravaganza, I have to say that I'm all for this rule, and I love it because it would give me even more of Cincinnati and Kansas City, or actually even more of Buffalo and Kansas City. Cincinnati, we know Kansas City did get the ball first, but didn't score a touchdown, and Cool Joe sure the hell did, and we know what happened after that.
I know.
But hey, what do you think about the rules? Like, are you all for it? Are you an old curmudgeon that says, leave it the way it is?
Yeah, I am. I'm one of those guys, leave it the way it is. I like sudden death.
And to USA, watch football weeks 1 through 18. No, I'm just
hey, well, I'm just saying it because, if you're going to do that, think about it. I'll tell you some rules that should be changed real quick before I answer your question on that even more, before I delve into that even more. If you look at, I'm going to tell you a rule that I don't like that should be changed. Since we're talking about the NCAA tournament and the Final Four, that possession error rule. You're going to change some rules. I think that affects people or teams more so than anything. Because why give them the ball if they're not the ones that made the play on the ball?
It's like, because we gave it to the other team last time.
Yeah, it's like jump the ball up in middle court and compete for the basketball. I don't like that. Okay, your possession error here, possession error there. I think that's a rule that should be changed. I'm surprised. Now, I know college basketball.
Nobody drive home an NFL take with a college basketball.
Hey, I'm about to get back
with
to
a college basketball
back around. I'm making a point.
analogy.
I'm making a point. But to your point about the rules, So that's a rule right there that I would like to see change, that possession error rule in college basketball, because I think that hinders a team's chances to win more so than anything. Especially if you come down in the situation to a latter part of the game and somebody makes a great play on defense, and now just because you tie the ball up, you have to give it to the other team. As far as football is concerned, bro, they knock heads for 60 minutes out there, full contact, very, very, very brutal sport. I think the way it was just fine. Get out there. If you don't win the toss, play some defense, stop the other team. If you don't stop the other team and they score a touchdown, game over. But, hey, as far as do I like the rule, I'm not going to say I don't like it, because it may come a point where the Cowboys in a situation like that, and I may want them to get the ball. But if I would have been in the room, I would have been the one voting to keep it like that.
Yeah. Well, to your possession arrow take, the possession arrow only works because, like I said, it goes both ways.
To get there.
Well, how are you going to give it to them? Well, we gave it to you last time. You did? Yeah, we did. So that is the way it is. I don't see that changing. But as far as the NFL overtime rules, look, I get where you're coming from, Greg, because I understand that in its own right, that the overtime rule and the way it's been for the NFL over the years, it was perfect in its own way. Like, you could go out there, you can get on offense, you could win if you score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. You could also get out there on defense and you can win if you score a touchdown. You know what I mean? Or any defensive score, a safety. But as the NFL has progressed to this offensive heavy game, where now, a pass interference penalty can put, the most explosive offensive team in the league on the 2-yard line for them to win a playoff game, which seasons are being decided by this. I think because the rules are so heavily favored for the offense, that you should give the defense a pass. If they do give up a touchdown on the first drive, the team should still have the offense be allowed to touch the football. Only in the playoffs. I actually like the way they did it. Only in the playoffs, because the way the rules are now.
So what does the rule actually entail?
Okay, so all it is it's everything's the same except for, let's say we win the toss, we get the football, we go down there and score a touchdown with the first drive. Normally the game would be over.
Right.
In the 2022 NFL playoffs, which will be in 2023, whenever those games are going on, if that happens, there's going to be a kickoff after that for the first time in NFL history. And the other team will get the opportunity to possess the ball. They don't score, they go 4 and out, whatever happens, they can't get a touchdown, they lose. if they
when
do
we
get a
start seeing more
touchdown,
injuries and
it goes
concussions, I don't want them
back.
complaining.
Well, that's why they're only doing it in the playoffs. And I think that whenever we see this work itself out in the playoffs, like had we seen that Buffalo Kansas City game get to keep going in the overtime, I think really it just adds another little sweet layer to it where you get some more action and entertainment.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm all for entertainment.
You know how it feels though, how big of a pass interference call can be. You're in overtime, you lose the toss, and the very first play you're on defense, you get a BS call that you can't review anymore. You can't throw a flag for. You get a BS call that you can't throw a flag for, and now you're going to lose the game because the ball's now going to be placed at the 1 yard line or the 2 yard line, and there's no way if your defense gives up a touchdown from there's no way your offense gets to touch the ball. To me, I think that reason alone is good enough to at least talk about a rule change, and the owners apparently agreed as they approved it to implement this postseason.
Okay, and of course, then even that comes down to the money at the end of the day because you don't want to alienate these fans. So you won't. If all these fans are clamoring for it, of course they're going to try to appease them to keep them watching and things of that sort. But I don't want to hear them call it sudden death anymore because it's not sudden if the other team scores. Sudden death is when it's sudden.
Sudden death will be what happens if both teams get field goals or if both teams get
now
touchdowns.
They're going to still try to call it sudden death.
Well, after that, it will be sudden death because the first team to score then will prevail.
Hey, real quick, before we get to some NBA, before we get out of here, we have about 10 to 15 minutes at the most. Let me get your take on, real quick, Devontae Adams going to the Raiders now. Of course, I don't want to delve in too much about the relationship with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. We've talked about that ad nauseum. I know I have as well. And y'all know my take on that, even though he signed that contract. But this is another way to show Aaron Rodgers. This is another way of posturing by Green Bay, even though they probably didn't have the money that Devontae Adams wanted as well. But Devontae Adams goes to play for the Raiders, who are on the come up as well. They're doing some good things in Las Vegas right now. So he's on the come up playing with his ex-college teammate. And that's a big catch for the Raiders and a big loss for Green Bay. We're talking about teams having to field a draft with some receivers, field their team with some receivers in the draft. I mean, none more than Green Bay at this point.
And I think they're going to be prime players in the trade market as well with the Kansas City Chiefs. Look for them to come knocking for a few veteran wide receivers that can help them. They need somebody after losing Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams finally just said, hey, I'm going to go play where I want to play and where it makes me happy. Yeah. And if he can go back home.
Vegas or Green Bay, Wisconsin?
He can go, he can go almost essentially back home, go play with the Raiders, play with his college quarterback, Derek Carr, who a lot of people feel like is this like franchise superstar quarterback that is like just ready to just completely break out. He's flashed. He's strung together some MVP type performances. He's had years where he's in the running there towards the end, but they've fallen short. You feel like things are starting to fall into place into Oakland.
I do.
Even though they struggled with the with the John Gruden situation and everything, they didn't let that stop them. They're still. They're still moving forward, getting better, and they are ready, with Josh McDaniels at the helm to make some big things happen in Vegas. Bringing in Devontae Adams, I can't tell you how big that is. I mean, you look at they're an offense built like some of the other big offenses around the league. We just talked about, two offenses we expect to be really good in Kansas City and Miami. What do they have? Big play wide receiver and a big tight end. You look in Oakland or Las Vegas, I should say.
Waller.
Now they have that big play wide receiver to go with that big play tight end. And with Darren Waller, another guy who is just extremely gifted, and he's a guy who's unguardable. He may be, if you play fantasy football, you know about Darren Waller. If you follow the sport, you know about him. But he may be one of the least talked about superstar players at his position in the entire NFL. And I'm sure there's a defensive lineman rolling around in the dirt somewhere saying, hey, what about me? But I'm talking about guys that score touchdowns, guys that make plays, guys that are legitimate game plan breakers for defenses around the league. Darren Waller is one of those guys, and unless you are a football head like me and you, or you're a fantasy football head, I'm not hearing a lot of love or a lot of talk about this guy when really you should, because he is, to me, he's the number 2 tight end in the game, hands down.
Agreed.
And he's working his way
can
up
see
on
that.
giving Kelsey a run for his money.
Yeah, he's very good. When he's healthy, he is very good and unguardable. Almost has wide receiver skills as well. But
he has that other gear that you don't see a lot of tight ends have.
that's true. That's true.
When he's running after the catch, he can break away from some folks.
That's right. Hey, so I know there's probably some more NFL that we could probably discuss, but hey, 2-hour show. And, of course, we can talk about more NFL next week. Even though it's not football season right now, we're always going to talk some NFL.
Yeah.
Going to get some
Well, I
college
wanted to
football
talk about that
in.
rule change, because that is we're going to get a look at that this season.
definitely.
And then an update on Deshaun Watson. The NFL won't use the commissioner exempt list for Deshaun Watson, but a suspension is in play. And that's the latest report coming from ProFootballTalk.com.
Well, you know, when it involves women, you know they're going to suspend them for at least 6 games just because, whether or not it's criminal charges, or not, just because it's women involved. And so that's just something they
And
have
just
to do
the sheer
for the optics
magnitude
it more than
of the,
anything.
the numbers with the cases and everything.
Right,
this
right,
is a
right.
case unique in its own. I don't think we've
So
ever
he's gonna
seen
get
anything like this,
He's gonna get suspended.
in any sport.
Yeah.
You know?
So he's going to get suspended. Hopefully for him, he would just weather that storm. And again, I mean, when there's women involved in a situation like that, you can't be insensitive to that situation. So Goodell, he's going to make sure that he gets a suspension. Again, even if it's just for the optics of things right there. So we can expect a suspension. But again, Deshaun is like, hey, I expect that $230 million too. So it's all good with me. That's how Deshaun is looking at it. Real quick, Ed, there's not too much to talk about on the NBA tip right now.
Let me ask you
other than
this
the
real
fact-
quick, because
Okay.
are the are the Rockets endangering their chance of getting that number 1 pick by playing as well as they played lately?
Yeah, I
But
think they are.
You saw what they did. You saw what they did the other night, right? They went ahead and took Wood, Green.
what Jalen
They
Green's
took.
been
They
doing,
took.
bro.
They sat down Wood. They sat down Green. They sat down everybody. They sat down, because I guarantee you they
they're
don't want
gelling.
to screw this up.
They're gelling.
If they got an
I don't think
opportunity
they-
to get the number 1 pick.
See, but that's the thing, Eddie. I don't think.
Well,
put it
see,
like
they
this.
were in the lead for it. Now they're tied with Detroit
Because
and
their talent is
Orlando.
starting to- Right, and see, that's where I was going to go. I think, and I'm going to say this.
But hey, the lottery, you still got
I
a chance.
think, yeah, you do.
Because they were didn't they
You
have
have a
the
chance
most?
unless
They had the most
you have a
balls last
chance.
year, but they still didn't get number 1, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. I think they have a chance only if the commissioner says they do. Because I'm telling you, I don't care what no one says. I don't care. They can put the lottery balls on television and show us all this and that. Bro, that's game in my opinion. They know who's going to get the number 1 pick when it boils down to it. However they have it rigged up. And yes, I truly feel that way. And I truly feel that they're going to make sure that Chet Holmgren, if he's projected as a number 1 pick like he is, I think they're going to make sure he go play with Cade Cunningham. I think they're going to try to give Detroit that. And maybe the Rockets get the 2nd pick. I hope the Rockets get the first pick.
let's say if they get the first
When
pick,
Jalen Green is playing
if they get the
with
first
Sengun,
pick, do they?
Come on, bro.
If they get the first
With the
pick,
number 1 pick?
you add Holmgren, you move Sagoon to the 4, and
Right.
then you trade Wood, and then what?
That's what I would do.
And then
I think
you
they're
just
also
start
gonna-
building with these guys.
start
Yeah.
building- Yeah, for real, man. So the Rockets.
Man, you're getting me excited. When's the draft? When is the
Hey,
draft?
I know, right? But check it out.
NFL
Check it out.
drafts around the corner, but not the NBA guy.
Yeah,
We gotta have to
we're
wait
always looking
for
ahead.
that one.
We're always looking ahead, Eddie. So we're always.
Well, because
looking
I
at
was
the
going to ask you, I was like,
prospects.
do they draft Homer? Because as their roster's currently constructed, you could make an argument that maybe he doesn't fit because of Sengun and Shingun and because of
see,
Christian Wood.
no,
But I
I
think
think-
if you get an opportunity to get him as
has
good
too
as
much
he is,
upside.
I think maybe you got to find a way to move on from Wood once you do
Yes,
that.
you do, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Because
real quick
Shingun
before
ain't
we
going.
go
No,
on.
you ain't getting my Shingun.
Sengun is
You
about
ain't
to be
getting
another
him.
Jokic, and Jokic. We don't have time to talk about him tonight, but he is continually balling at an MVP level with Denver. But Sengun, Alperen Sengun with the Rockets, and like I've said before on a number of occasions, him and Jalen Green, they're the foundation for this team. He has a chance. Sengun has a chance to be special along with Jalen Green. And Chet Holmgren, what he would do, he would give you that defensive presence, a true legitimate shot blocker who can actually rebound and who actually has guard skills, so he can play out on the wing, and he's only going to get better. And again, he he's trying to get better, and he works on his game, and he plays like a 7-footer. So I think you add a 7-footer in the mix who can play some defense, but can also handle the rock, make plays for others, make plays for himself, can play on the perimeter at 7 foot. I just don't 7'1". I just don't think you pass that up if you're the Rockets to go along with Sengun and Jalen Green, who has a chance to be the next Kobe, in my opinion. And I honestly believe that. But real quick before we get out of here, Robert Williams and the Celtics. That loss for Robert Williams. That loss for the Celtics is not looking good with that torn meniscus. I didn't realize he wasn't a 7-footer. I said on the show a few weeks ago he was a 7-footer. I didn't realize he was just 6'8" or whatever he is, but he's a tremendous presence inside for Boston. And you know how Boston has been playing as of late. That's a big-time loss for them. We'll see if he's able to come back from that meniscus. The Golden State Warriors, I know I picked them, but Eddie, I'm having some trepidation. I want to see them whole and healthy. Like they say, it's a fluid situation right now because it's so many teams that's balling right now on both sides of the ball. But Steph is out. Wiseman is not going to come back, I think, because of that knee is swelling up, even though they say it's sound. He's not going to have another surgery. But I think that's the best thing for him in his future is to go ahead and sit him out. So it's going to be up to Steph, Clay, and Draymond and the rest of that team when they're whole to make it happen, even though they haven't had a chance to get that chemistry going right now. But it's going to be a very interesting playoffs. And then, of course, Phoenix with Chris Paul, the way they're playing. Of course, Milwaukee.
I mean, even when he was out, you felt like they didn't
Next
even
week
really.
We're going to talk a lot of NBA.
They didn't even really miss a beat when he was gone. With the
Phoenix
fingers.
is the real deal, bro. Memphis, they don't miss a beat without Ja Morant.
I'm telling you, man, I got turned on to Phoenix last season. They really showed me something watching the way that team gelled and grew and made me really envious that Chris Paul was now a part of their roster and no longer a part of what was going on in Houston.
Back.
But hey, it
Devin
all
Booker
needed to happen.
like
Houston's
MVP.
at a different place now. We're moved on to younger players. The rebuild is going, but Phoenix, man, Phoenix is a buzzsaw.
You know what?
And they are a serious
Eddie,
problem
you know what,
for
man?
anybody.
I totally agree, and I picked Golden State, and I'm going to stay with that pick, and a lot of that has to do with pride right now. I ain't going to lie. I want to see them whole before I get off that pick. I want to see them playing whole for a series with Draymond, Clay, Steph, all that deep roster they have. I want to see that before I be like, oh, okay. But Memphis and Phoenix, I mean, there's something to be reckoned with over there in that West. And I don't care that Phoenix is as young as they are. I mean, not Phoenix, but Memphis. I mean, the depth that they have on that team, the intensity that they play with on both sides of the ball, the fun that they're having, and the talent that they have, Memphis can make some noise. Not next year. You heard me last year talking about them all the time, bringing them up because I saw this coming. But they can make some noise this year in the playoffs. And, of course, I'm a Luka fan, but I would love to see Luka at least win a playoff series. But Memphis is the real deal. I agree with you about Phoenix, man. Phoenix, they are loaded. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, Ayton. I mean, they are deep and they are loaded. And Phoenix is a team. If Chris Paul actually was able to get that championship, I wouldn't be mad. Of course, it's Chris Paul. I would love to see Chris Paul get a ring. But I want to see what Golden State is able to do before that.
Yeah, I would like to see him get it while the Rockets aren't in contention.
The Rockets are good.
Yeah,
because we both feel like the Rockets are on the come up with that young talent
and
that they have.
I think Chris Paul, I don't think you can write NBA history if Chris Paul doesn't get an NBA championship. I think the guy has flat out, I think, come back from a point where people thought that his career was, in such a decline that he was, on the brink of retirement, and unable to stay healthy. I think he's come back and proved everybody wrong and proved that he still has a lot of tread left on the tire, and that his great savant of a basketball mind that he has, it really is undefeated.
Yes, because he's so cerebral. His game has never been predicated on athleticism. So what he had a chance to do when he went to Phoenix, he had a chance to be that leader again, absent of James Harden. He had a chance to be that leader, run the show, and he's so cerebral. When you put that type of talent around him, Chris Paul can play till he's 40 years old, and he can still look like the same player because he's not going to be jumping over people or be some high wire act. He's going to be Chris Paul, a guy who's smart, a great leader, and he still has the talent. But, hey, you know what? We'll be back to break down a lot more NBA next week, talk about the Final Four. We're going to see what happens right there. Of course, there's always going to be NFL talk, and I'm a college football guy, so I love me some college football. We're going to do that as well. Eddie, great job as always, my friend. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, legends live and let live.
Later, guys. We'll see you next week. Sports Court.